T. It's in the name.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor with Ben and Travis podcast. On today's episode, it's tax day. So we're going to talk about tax day. Yeah. And other things that stress us out. Maybe Ben will give us a few tips on how to de-stress, decompress on tax day. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Maybe a little what is possible. What are the possibilities? Last week, we decided Megladon was much more a possibility than Bigfoot. Can Megladon stay on the throne? We'll see right after these important messages. Hey, parents and young adventurers, are you ready to embark on an extraordinary journey? Introducing the adventures of Ben and Travis and the Worry Coaster, a thrilling ride through the ups and downs of mental health in our new children's book. Join our dynamic duo as they navigate the twists and turns of their emotions while discovering the courage to conquer their worries. Pre-order your ticket to adventure now at benandtravis.com/books and be among the first to embark on this roller coaster of resilience. Let's turn worry into wonder and empower kids to embrace their feelings with bravery and hope. Buckle up. It's going to be an unforgettable ride. I'm Travis Creasy. I'm the campus minister at Riverside Christian Academy. That's Ben Hayes, all-pro counselor with 3-Chord Counseling. Preaching minister at Highland Park Church of Christ, and a man, I guess both of us at some point will be on our way to Lads to Leaders this weekend. I think you're going to be there pretty much all weekend. I'm going to be dodging in and out, talking a little of the adventures of Ben and Travis and the Worry Coaster. I think we're going to do a podcast on location there in Nashville, Tennessee. I know that if you're listening to this and you're familiar with Lads to Leaders, they got stuff going on all over the country, probably some different dates mixed in there as well. But as per tradition around these parts, you'll be heading to Nashville for Easter weekend. So, Ben, you excited about a little Lads to Leaders?
I am. I always enjoy going up there. It's like a lot of the weekends that we do, like CYC and stuff. It's a fast-paced, moving, shaking, always going somewhere the whole time you're up there, but it's a blessing to be there. It's always fun to hang out with people, see people you haven't seen in a while, run into old classmates from college and high school. And it's a good weekend. A lot of good people. Of course, Gaylord Opryland Hotel is just, it's a gorgeous place anyway, just cool to walk around. It's got that little bit of ambiance walking through the Cascades or the Delta or whatever. I know.
Ambiance. I like that. We'll tuck that away.
It's a neat one. So I always enjoy it just for that fact. I try to occasionally just sort of walk through there by myself and feel the feel of a jungle or whatever and just enjoy it and get away from the crowd a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we record this, it is April the 14th, which is International Moment of Laughter Day, Look Up at the Sky Day, National Dolphin Day, National Pecan Day, Reach as High as You Can Day. And then it will come out on April 15th, which most people associate with income taxes being due. Also, Rubber Eraser Day, probably to erase some of your money making this year. Take a Wild Guess Day, Titanic Remembrance Day, World Art Day, and then the rest of the week kind of plays out kind of fun too. Bean Counter Day on the 16th, Egg Benedict Day, Mushroom Day, National Librarian Day, National Orchid Day, Save the Elephant Day, Roll Tide, Stress Awareness Day, which is the first work day after the U.S. taxes are due. And then April 17th is Bat Appreciation Day, which also, not surprisingly, coincides with Blah, Blah, Blah Day. Herbalist Day, International Haiku Poetry Day. Maybe that could be a stress relief. National Cheese Ball Day, stress relief. And then National High Five Day, which is always the third Thursday of April. And that's not even to mention the fact that Good Friday, Passover, and Easter is rolling in. So some of you just got stressed out by me listing all those days.
Yeah, me too, because I'm trying to think, like, how in the world do I celebrate all of those days? But there's a few in there that I really like. I like pecans. So, Pecan Day sounds pretty fun. I think, I think it's intentional that it's the day after taxes,
Yes.
that it's stress day, things that stink, or if it's okay to say it on here, I think, the tax day is also known as things that suck day, but we may want to cut that out. Those are some tough days. And so the following day is, how do you deal with stress? Maybe it should have been today, like April the 14th should be stress day. Because if my brother's an accountant, I know he's moving and shaking and trying to get all the stuff done for tax season. I'm worried about what it's going to look like once he gets my taxes done, so I think the stress is probably more on the day before, but maybe the day after is to get people to decompress off of it.
Probably Sunday might have been the most prayerful day, right? I know it's Palm Sunday as well, but taxes coming up, people probably been praying a lot more here recently.
I'm assuming.
Or some would say, I might be in this camp, National Legalized Theft Day. But anyways, for those of us that distrust the government, but we'll get to that a little bit later, Ben, a little bit later. But there's tons of things, and each person has their individual stresses.
Yeah.
Some people, the thing that stresses you out might not even register on my radar, and maybe I don't want it to. Or maybe when we were younger, there were things that stressed us out that we probably haven't thought about in decades. And ultimately, all of this starts, as I mentioned, with prayer. One of the best ways to de-stress is prayer, meditation, focus on God's word. We would obviously push anybody listening to this podcast in that direction to kind of mitigate your stress. And of course, having a connection and relationship with Jesus should lead to that as well. Although there are things that are connected. I know that when we go and do our mental health seminar, that you mentioned that anxiety is given to us. It can be a good thing that if it motivates us to work hard and to do our best. But there is that tipping point where it becomes something that, as Jesus, I'm sure at the time knew, that it doesn't add to your life. And we've come to the understanding that it can certainly take away from at least your enjoyment of life. And even if it's not attended to, could be hazardous to staying alive. So,
well, we've talked about before, I think on here and in our seminars, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners know that, but, a lot of stress and anxiety, where that's rooted in our brain is, connected to the fight or flight. There's a lot of our panic and that sort of thing is in our amygdala. That's kind of the seat of fear and that sort of thing. And so it's almost as if, it isn't almost as if, it is, when we have certain stressors or panic or whatever that may come along, we're moving into fight or flight mode. And sometimes it's not an appropriate place to have fight or flight. I use the example with people, if a police officer pulls you over on the way home today, which one is appropriate, to run or to fight? And I think, we would hope that everybody understands neither of those is good. Freeze is the third option you often hear with fight or flight. That one's probably okay. But even then, you still have to say something to the officer when they come up. If you've just completely frozen, that doesn't work either. And so the adaptive things that have helped us survive as a human race, or, animals to survive, can be the very things that really create problems for us when it's in an inappropriate place. And what the difference is generally animals, that's their response. They run or they fight, or they freeze and hope you don't see them. And they work for them. But it's the same mechanism in our brain. If we get stressed about a test, we can't run or fight the teacher. And if we freeze in place, we may not get anything done. And so we have to learn ways to sort of move beyond the fight or flight mode of it, and not let it completely shut us down. And so that's where the issues a lot of times come in. Is it's a natural thing God gave us. If a little bit of stress motivates us to get things done, but too much of it can kind of shut us down. And so how do we handle that? How do we what are some things that we can do to calm down? And one of the things we've talked about often is you're going to feel a lot of things in your body. Your heart's going to race. You're going to feel sick at your stomach. You're going to sweat. You're going to breathe heavy. All those different, every organ is going to respond to that fight or flight mode when all of that stuff is dumped into your system. All those different chemicals or adrenaline and all that kind of stuff. And so, what is the one thing you control, Travis? We've talked about this several times.
Breathing.
Yeah. So it's out of all those things, breathing is what we can control. And so that's one of the first steps is just, hey, if you can control how fast you're breathing, you can sometimes reset, like it's that reset button and send a message that says, hey, we're good. And then the heart starts slowing down and some of the other things happen.
What is crazy to me, Ben, is I think today is a day we're going to go to the chiropractor, right? I'm not asking anyone's opinion about chiropractors. So, but what's amazing to me is I can lay down on that table and not know that I am holding my shoulder very tightly. And he will say, hey, relax that right shoulder there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't know that I was holding my shoulder so tightly, and then I relax and let go. And it's crazy how focused you can be on something else or thinking about something, and you don't even realize you're breathing. Or what you've also talked about a lot is kind of that scan of the body, or making a muscle. I'm contracting my hand right now and then letting loose, and how good it feels to let those muscles go. How you can store that stuff up in different places in your body or in your mind, and you don't even know that you're carrying it, and it takes someone else going, hey, yeah, you're a little knotted up right here. Or
it's here, yeah.
It's kind of wild.
Yeah. Progressive muscle relaxation, guided imagery. These are some words that if you wanted to just kind of Google and look up some different techniques, you can find some of that on YouTube or the Calm app or other places. But I actually just went over this with the kids at school today. Didn't realize it was stress day coming up, but with fifth graders, I said, look, you're about to go into middle school. There's going to be stress in middle school. There's and most kids today, even in elementary, if you say, have you ever had stress, they'll raise their hands. Or you ever been stressed about something or anxious about something? I don't even think I knew what those were when I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
I don't even know that I'd heard those words at that age. But it's pretty commonplace now. And so we talked about a lot of these things, kind of went through what we do on our seminar. And so I talked about, you started with the scripture. I talked about the meditation, the biblical meditation with them a little bit. And there's several different references throughout the Old Testament, mostly in Psalms, where he says, I'll meditate on your precepts, which we don't use that word a lot, but it just means his words to us. I'm gonna meditate on your words or your concepts or your laws. I'm gonna meditate on your performance, I think is what we say, but basically on what you've done. And he calls back, I think it's Psalm 145. He calls attention to some of the things that God has done through history. So when I want to really meditate on the things of God, I meditate on his precepts or his words. I meditate on his performance or the things he's done. And then the third thing is I meditate on his promises. Here's some of the things that he has promised that's going to be okay. And so ask the kids in both classes, first response was that he'll never destroy the earth by flood again. So when we think about all these natural disasters and different things that we face, or just anything in general, God's made us certain promises about some things. And one of the most powerful ones is, I'll never leave you or forsake you.
Yeah, so, I think of the verses, how many times Paul, and I've got one here from 2 Corinthians, for this light momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, speaking to his promises. And, I would be willing to guess that Paul suffered way more than I have in my life. I can at least speak for myself. And I don't know what our listeners are going through. You may be waiting on something way worse than taxes, right? Maybe there's a scan or something. I've had those. And one of the great ways to overcome that is the eternal perspective. In other places, Paul says, think on the things that are above, the things that are pure, the things that are good. There's a whole list of things to focus on. But the reason he's learned that, it's a process. If you're sitting there right now going, I don't even know where to start. Maybe we've given you some things that are just simple right there that you can do. But understand you're not the first. And that's not mitigating what you're dealing with, whatever it is. The things that Ben talked about, fifth grade, I probably haven't worried about the same things or stressed about the same things a fifth grader has at 44. But wherever you are, hopefully we've given you some practical things, but certainly the eternal perspective that, if Paul can say momentarily and light, then anything I'm going through, if I think about what he went through, and more importantly, Jesus, then I can get through maybe the next 5 minutes or the next couple of days or weeks or months. And I know there are a lot of people out there dealing with a lot of things that have been months and years in the process. But to Ben's point, the fact, what a miracle, if I can use that word, maybe I won't be judged too harshly, that we have the Lord with us. Like, don't miss out on the supernatural aspect of that and really the superpower of it.
And it might be a good challenge this week to say, hey, 10 minutes, 5 minutes maybe, that you just spend in either what Travis was talking about, a body scan, where you just go, what sensations am I feeling in my head, my shoulders, in my chest, my stomach, my legs, my arms, what are some of the sensations I'm feeling? Just kind of take note of those. If I need to lighten up and loosen up a little bit on something, or the progressive relaxation where you kind of tense by pushing, tense by pulling, do it on a chair, push down on a chair, pull up on a chair, let it loose, or just tensing up the muscles like a TENS unit. It might be sitting and just imagining being at the beach or imagining being in the mountains, but take some time.
Happy place.
Yeah. Maybe every day for 5 minutes, maybe as you start the day or as you end the day or at a stressful time in the day, you might just kind of sit back and breathe or think about the things you can hear, see, feel, smell, taste at the moment. Guided imagery, body scan, whatever those things are. But just take 5 or 10 minutes every day to do that. I wonder how much better we would feel if we did, because I don't do it every day. But I was thinking to myself, if I started my day that way, it would probably be a pretty solid deal. So probably feel a whole lot better throughout the day.
All right, Ben, we love the question of the day, and we like to have a little fun. So if you're a fuddy-duddy at this moment, this is probably the best time to turn off the podcast, because we're going to get in goofy mode here. But last week, we decided that the Megladon was more likely to be real and living at the moment, right? I'm not talking about we have fossils, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Is there a Megladon out there somewhere, or is it more likely that Bigfoot exists and we kept Megladon on the throne? The Megladon keeps going, and now we're going to introduce maybe something that is a little more of a conspiracy theory, right? Yeah. And we're going to have people that are passionate about it, but that's what we love, is we want that passionate response. And so, is it more likely that the Megladon is out there somewhere today, or, Ben, did we land on the moon? Did we actually take a trip to the moon? Because I think this is picking up steam rather than calming down on whether or not we went to the moon or not. And we're not going to get into all the details, but is there a detail that makes you think we landed on the moon more so than Megladon is out there swimming around somewhere?
That's a tough one from the standpoint of, like, I still think that there's a possibility that a Megalodon's, that there's a massive shark out there somewhere in the depths. I feel pretty good about that we landed on the moon.
All right.
I know there's a few little things that, people have questioned. I feel pretty good about it. One, I've been in an airplane on multiple occasions. I know that flying is possible. I have, seen video footage of things.
You mean there's not like some like TV studio that actually has convinced you, like the Truman Show at some level?
That I've traveled and I really haven't. Those are some of the arguments that I'm like, that's a little silly because I've been some places and I'm fairly certain that I've been in Nepal and Bangladesh and Alaska, and that's a really big conspiracy if you got that many people flying. So I've flown.
It really is all about Ben Hayes. Y'all didn't know that.
That's really right. Yeah, apparently it's just all about me. Then there's plenty of evidence that we've gone into space, that things have happened. And I feel like, look, if we can do the things that we've done, then yeah, we've probably been up there. The argument is probably not that we've been in space, but have we actually stepped foot on the moon, I guess is where a lot of people are struggling. But I'm like, I don't know why that's so far-fetched if we can do the things we have done. So I'd say we've probably landed on.
Well, certainly our comments will be filled with all of the evidence you can handle, Ben, or at least we hope. We love that.
What's your thought?
What is my thought? Well, I don't trust the government. So I don't know. If the government tells me, I typically take the option B, whatever the other option is. I'm the guy that they're like, yes, UFOs are real. And I'm like, oh, well, what are they trying to get us to our attention on? What are they trying to take our attention away from by admitting that UFOs are real? Maybe that's just deep down, I don't want to believe in UFOs, but
maybe UFOs show up next week.
Yeah, maybe that's the next one.
What about landing on the moon, Travis?
If you guys listening on here have any comparisons, and we're going to split here, we're going to split. I just don't. And that's part of the argument. They will say, well, we don't know what's on the bottom of the ocean. How could we have ever made it to the moon? And we don't know what the bottom of the ocean looks like or any of that stuff. So I'm going to say, and once again, it's a percentage. I'm not saying that either didn't happen. I'm saying which one's more likely. And I think there's a shark out there. I think there is a ginormous shark that would make our, I have spidey sense that tingles when I get in the water. And, I just don't know what's out there. So I'm falling in that there's a higher percentage that there is a ginormous shark out there, Meg, and maybe a couple over us landing on the moon. Once again, not officially saying, and I don't think Ben is officially saying either one is wrong. It's just the more likelihood. So we're split.
More likelihood.
Maybe we need to get Will to shoot us a video for the end to see what our official show,
what the official pick is.
Yeah, and
I'll be anxious to hear. So, got the rubber match there with.
Just don't stress about it, man. Don't stress about it.
I'm not stressing about it. I'm okay either way.
Thank the Lord. Tax day is one day a year, and I was good, Ben. I had mine done. Actually, a little later than usual. I was stressing a little bit. Usually, I'm like January 15th. That stuff's done. But it was more like March this year. So,
I'm impressed.
Yeah. So, well, I appreciate you, Ben. Appreciate your expertise. Appreciate you get what you and Pam and Karen and are doing over there to help folks out. And be sure to go check out 3-Chord Counseling over there in Muscle Shoals if you're in the area and need somebody to talk to. Don't ever, and I will say this, don't suffer alone. If you got something going on, reach out to somebody. You can get us at hello@benandtravis.com. And we can maybe point you in the right direction wherever you are. But don't suffer alone. There's always hope. There's always someone out there that can help you. And so certainly reach out if that's the case. Ben, appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. You too. Have a good one.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.